Ooh. Are you familiar with Dekotora, otherwise known as decorated trucks? These lavish transport trucks, adorned with all sorts of colored lights, chrome, amazing murals, are impossible to miss when driving along the highways of Japan. They're a big subculture here with annual meetups, truck conventions, specialty shops, movies dedicated to them, and so on. Along with this comes a long list of games, one of which I'm taking a look at today, Bakusou Dekotora Densetsu GB Special for the Game Boy Color. Dekotora in general started by necessity, as many of the trucks that were used for shipping fish and transporting marine-related goods were often exposed to a lot of salt, as well as trucks that drove in snowy areas, which would get covered in snow-melting chemicals. This led to a truck's cargo boxes rusting out rather quickly, which obviously was a problem. To combat this, a process to treat the surface of the metal that was originally used on aircraft ended up giving it a unique finish. This was referred to as urokotsu-ten. This quickly spread from being just rust prevention to adding a lot of personal flair to the trucks, as it could be used to add patterns through etching, thus the birth of Dekotora. Now actually, the full title of today's game is Bakusou Dekotora Densetsu GB Special Otoko Dokyou no Tenka Touitsu. I'm surprised they could fit it all in the box. It roughly translates to Loud Roar Dekotora Legend GB Special Unification of Men's Courage. Wow, that's a masculine title if ever I've heard one. This is a Game Boy Color game, but I'm playing it here via the Game Boy Player attachment on the GameCube. This is one in the long-running Bakusou Dekotora Densetsu series that started with the first installment on the PlayStation 1 in 1998. I have most from this series, which covers a large variety of systems. But because this one is for the Game Boy Color, you would think they would have cut out a lot, but that's surprisingly not the case. As you start off, you get the option to do a story mode or a two-player mode via the link cable. Luckily, this game does have a battery backup for saving, so you can continue from where you left off, just like on other consoles. Starting a new game in story mode, you name your character and your truck. I named mine after the popular 1970s Dekotora series of movies, Toraku Yaro, where the main character named Momojiro is a wild Dekotora driver with his truck, the Ichiban Boshi, meaning number 1 star. Naming my character after him turned out to be quite fitting, because later in the game, the player sees a girl and, struck by her beauty, sees flashes of lights glittering around her. This seems to be a direct nod to those films, where Momojiro would meet a new woman in each installment, and when he first sees them, they're also surrounded by sparkling stars. After naming, you get a basic undecorated shipping truck to start off with. The story starts with you trying to reach your girlfriend, doing shipments and battles along the way. The basic gameplay loop is first you pick what cargo you want to carry, then you'll go to the map and be challenged by another trucker. Your goal is to reach the end of the shipping run before they do, but take too much damage in the process and your cargo will be ruined. If that happens, you'll lose out on precious BP, which is basically this game's currency, so you'll want to avoid hitting the other truck or cars on the road as much as possible. This is easier said than done, however, as the opponents can get quite aggressive depending on who they are, and will take every opportunity to get past you, including getting you boxed in by other cars or ramming into your truck. Using your horn helps get the regular cars out of your way, to a degree, but there's definitely times where you'll find yourself stuck behind two and just have to wait for them to move. You could also try ramming into them, but you'll take damage, again risking the cargo. If the other truck is coming up behind you, you'll see a helpful arrow at the bottom of the screen. Use this to your advantage and try to block the opponent's way. If you're lucky, they'll accidentally ram into you from behind, giving you a big boost ahead. There are also occasional boss fights, and usually these bosses have special conversations before the races. They're faster and more clever at maneuvering than the regular challengers, and if they beat you, it's game over. But luckily, you can continue off from the last autosave, so not much is lost if that happens. There's also occasional dialogue options with some of the people you meet, or even a fight or two where you have to choose which direction to dodge and punch to try and win, but that's basically just guesswork. The controls are pretty simple. You can accelerate and brake using the A and B buttons. Changing lanes is sort of a two-step process. Let's say, for example, you want to move into the right lane. You would press right on the D-pad once. This turns on your indicator. Then, when you're ready, you press it again to automatically make the lane change. So you're not so much constantly steering the truck like in a normal racing game, but rather deciding the best time to be in what lanes to get ahead of your rival and to avoid other vehicles. Pressing up on the D-pad honks the horn, and pressing down will have you do a special yell to taunt your opponent. It's all pretty responsive and straightforward. Before each race, you have to choose the items you're going to transport. The weight of the items will have an effect on your speed, and as you can see here, there are things like clothes and books, or more fragile options like bottles of sake, furniture, and sheets of glass. Because you're traveling around Japan, some items are related to the areas you're in. For example, in Aomori, which is famous for apples, they become an item you can transport once you reach that prefecture. While some items will break more easily during battle, they'll also probably net you more BP if you do well. The BP can then be used to buy upgrades, new parts, and paint for your truck. This part of the game is quite extensive, having lots of items you can choose from as you win more races and get more BP. Also, when you beat an opponent, you get the chance to take one of their decorative parts, which have different levels of impact and costs, so choose wisely because you can only take one each time. I found myself stopping to consider what to take, as some enemies, especially bosses, have a lot of good parts. Luckily, each one is numbered, so you can keep track of what you do or don't have already. Considering this is a Game Boy Color cart, I'm impressed with how much customization was carried over from the other games on more powerful systems. As you add decorations to your truck, your style percentage will go up or down depending on the parts you choose. It helpfully shows you the number of how many parts you have out of the total, which is a whopping 237. You also have a legend amount, which grows as you win more races. The only thing that's really lacking that the other games have is the option to draw your own art for the truck, but the pre-made pictures are quite well done, again considering the limited storage of the Game Boy Color carts. The art and graphics are really impressive in some parts, like the story mode backgrounds and character portraits. They went for a realistic style for most of it, and I think it turned out great. During gameplay, the art style is noticeably more simplistic, and once your opponent's truck gets a bit ahead of you, its unique decorations disappear, although yours stay consistent. It's fun seeing the simplified version of your truck's paint job compared to when it's viewed in the shop. You'll also have the occasional challenge to try different trucks, like this smaller delivery truck, which is a fun change-up from the usual. The backgrounds during gameplay have a bit of variety, like having the cities on the horizon, fields of grass and farms, day and night settings, etc. The map screen, however, didn't fare so well. It gets the job done, but it looks like a bit more simplified version of a Super Mario overworld map. The music is based on the great Enka soundtracks these games always have. It does a surprisingly decent job of recreating these songs for the Game Boy. Because the system can't convincingly have the lyrics being sung, they instead opted to have them written at the bottom, so if the race isn't too intense, or you've got a navigator with you, why not take a moment to sing a little karaoke? It really seems to be a good entry-level game for those that want to get into the Dekotora Densetsu series, as all the main mechanics are there, just simplified. Overall, I think it's an impressive addition to the Dekotora Densetsu series, with very little lost in the translation to the smaller handheld system. It would serve a trucker well on those long cross-country hauls, although don't play it while driving. You know, I wish people would customize their regular cars as much as Dekotora truckers do. Rather than roads that are just a sea of boring red, black, and white, there would be tons of color and personality out there. Each car, a little burst of artistic creativity. Well then, I'm gonna hit the road, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.